We don't need your kind messing with my car. Back off." The man's voice cracked across the empty stretch of Highway 92 like a whip-sharp, entitled stinking of judgment. His tailored blazer caught the golden light of the setting sun. As he kicked gravel from his Italian loafers, glaring at the boy beside his stalled Mercedes, the wind had died. Just birds overhead and the faint buzz of a far-off insect. A few drivers slowed, rubbernecking the expensive car on the shoulder. No one stopped. Why would they? The boy, maybe 13, maybe younger, stood with a tire iron still in his hand. Dark skin, oversized hoodie, braided hair tucked behind one ear. He looked like he didn't belong in this scene. Like the air didn't want to wrap around him. The same way it did the Millionaire's cologne. But he didn't flinch. Didn't drop the iron, just blinked. Once. The Millionaire adjusted his cuffs, lips curling. I said, "Step away. I don't want a lawsuit because some street kid scratched. My rims." The boy finally moved, not to retreat, but to kneel. He pressed the tire iron gently against the jack and twisted fluid, precise. One final click. The car shifted, its weight rebalancing on the rim. The spare was already mounted. All he had to do now was let it down. The man blinked. "Are you deaf?" Elijah looked up, not angry, not scared, just patient, tired, like he'd seen this kind of performance before. "I didn't touch your rims," Elijah said, voice calm, almost teacher-like. "But if I stop now, your car drops on the axle. Then you'll really be late." The words were a mirror flat, honest, reflective. For a second, the man looked unsure. Then, with a loud sniff, he waved his hand like brushing off a bad smell. "You people always want something." Elijah didn't respond. Instead, he finished the job. Smooth and quiet, lowered the car, tightened the bolts. Then, like it was nothing, he placed the tools back into the rusted toolbox his father had left him, the only thing his dad ever passed down besides his name. As Elijah stood, the man reached into his pocket, pulled out a crisp $20, and shoved it forward like an insult. Elijah didn't take it. Instead, he pulled something from his hoodie. Not a weapon. Not a threat. It was a badge laminated, cracked at the corner. STEM Scholars Club, Junior Mechanics Division, Gold CRTFICAT. The man froze. Elijah met his gaze, then said slowly, "Not all of us want something from you. Some of us are just passing by, fixing things you never bothered to learn." And with that, he turned. But before his sneaker hit the gravel again, the man's phone buzzed in his pocket. He answered, still rattled. "Sir," the voice on the other end said, "the CEO of Landwell Enterprises is running late. There's some delay." He stopped to help someone with a flat tire. Elijah kept walking, and the man finally realized that boy hadn't been alone on that highway. He'd been watched. The hallway light in Elijah's building flickered every other second like it was trying to stay alive. Paint peeled from the walls in long, curling strips, and the elevator hadn't worked in years. But the third-floor apartment smelled like lemon cleaner and fried onions, a sign that Mama had beat him home. He dropped the toolbox gently by the door. "Shoes off, Eli," came her voice from the kitchen. "I know," he said, pulling off his dusty sneakers and slipping into socks worn thin at the heel. She was stirring a pot on the stove, wearing her old maroon scrub shirt and a scarf tied high around her braids. Exhausted but always in motion. "Good day?" Elijah shrugged. "Fixed a flat tire for a rich dude who didn't say thank you." She glanced at him. "He white?" He nodded once. She turned back to the stove, not surprised. "You didn't take money, did you?" "Nope. You tried to hand me 20 like I was a dog. I left it on the road." That earned a small, tired smile from her. "You're your daddy's boy, all right." He never bowed his head for a handout either. Elijah leaned against the counter and looked out the small kitchen window. The city blinked outside, distant and indifferent. Somewhere out there, the man he helped was probably back in a skyscraper, sipping bourbon, forgetting everything. But Carter Landwell hadn't forgotten, not even close. Inside a glass-walled office 30 stories up, Carter sat alone, replaying the dashcam footage. His AI security system had captured the entire scene, Elijah kneeling, working in silence, then holding up that cracked badge. And the line that echoed like a challenge. Some of us are just passing by, fixing things you never bothered to learn. It itched at him. The boy had looked him in the eye without fear. Not like a kid asking for a tip, but like a man making a point. Carter rewound the footage again. Zoomed. Froze on the badge. STEM Scholars. Junior Mechanics. He clicked a few keys. Within seconds, he was staring at a grainy website for a youth program in East Side Harbor, mostly black, underfunded, forgotten. Just a small blurb on the homepage: mechanical engineering, electrical, systems, robotics, and ethics. That last word stuck with him, ethics. He didn't remember learning that in school. Find this kid, Carter told his assistant the next morning, quietly. And don't mention the tire. She raised an eyebrow but not a dot. Back in the apartment, Elijah sat on the floor next to his little sister's dollhouse. Not playing, just fixing a broken plastic hinge with a paperclip and a soldering iron he wasn't supposed to use indoors. You know, his mama said, watching him, people like him don't usually remember. Boys like you. Not unless you give them a reason. I gave him a working car. She laughed once, soft and sad. You gave him a mirror. Elijah paused, the iron buzzing low in his hand. What if he comes back? He asked, not afraid, just curious. Mama looked him dead in the eyes. Then don't lower your head. Let him come. The door buzzer rang 3 times. They both went still. 3 buzzes. Not 1, not 2. 3, like code. Like someone meant it. Elijah stood up slowly. Mama, he said. I think he already did. Carter Landwell had never been to East Side Harbor. He didn't know the smell of overcooked grease that hung outside corner stores, or the graffiti tags that lined the bricks like handprints of the unheard. His polished Oxfords tapped awkwardly on cracked pavement as he stepped out of the black car, looking more like a man who took wrong turns than one who gave directions. The driver stayed behind. No one wanted to follow him through that rusted lobby. 3 buzzes. The door opened slowly, cautiously. Mama stood there. No smile. No fear. Just a stare that said, I've seen men like you before. Carter cleared his throat. Hi, I know who you are, she said. Everyone with a TV knows that face. I wanted to speak to Elijah. About what? He hesitated. About what happened on the highway. And maybe more than that. Mama leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed. If you're here to say thank you, you could have done that from a car window. I'm not here to throw money, he said quickly. I'm here because he made me think. That made her tilt her head. Think about what? That a black boy knew more than you did? Carter flinched. I deserve that. No, she said. You didn't deserve him. From the kitchen, Elijah appeared, quiet, watching. He'd changed into a clean hoodie. Still had oil stains on the cuffs. Mama, he said softly. It's okay. She didn't move. It's okay, he repeated, then turned to Carter. Say what you came to say. Carter stepped inside like a man walking into court. Not sure if he was the judge or the defendant. I run a mentorship initiative, he began, voice a little steadier now. Usually college interns, Ivy League, clean resumes. But none of them would have known how to jack that car in 5 minutes flat. You did. Elijah said nothing. I'd like to offer you something, Carter continued. Not charity. Not press. Just a shot. Engineering internship. Paid. Private mentorship. Full access to tech. Stop. Elijah's voice was sharp, sudden. You think I need your access to be worth something? Carter blinked. No, Elijah added, softer this time. But you need mine. That silence that followed wasn't heavy. It was clean. It cut through everything else. Mama looked at Carter like he was made of glass. And maybe, in that moment, he was. Carter swallowed. You're right, I know. Elijah stepped closer. You don't get to fix your conscience with my future. If I say yes, it's because I earned it, not because you're guilty. I'm not here to erase what happened. Elijah raised a brow. Then why does your driver have a camera under his mirror? Carter's face flushed. For the first time in years, he looked ashamed. I told them not to, but they did, Elijah cut in. Because people like you never come without a story to sell. I'll shut it down, Carter said quickly. The whole thing. You already made your mistake. Mama said quietly. Now it's up to him if you get another chance. Elijah didn't look angry. Just calm, like a mechanic who knew exactly which bolt would break next. I'll come to your internship, Elijah said finally. But there's one condition. Carter stood straighter. You don't mentor me, Elijah said. I mentor you. The first thing Elijah noticed was how quiet money could be. The Landwell. Technology's tower didn't hum like the city outside. It glided. Carpets swallowed footsteps. Walls whispered luxury. The elevator didn't ding. It sighed. Elijah stood inside the glass lift, watching the skyline shrink beneath him as it climbed. He adjusted his collar, a crisp white button-down Carter had someone send over. It didn't feel like his. Not yet. By the time the doors opened on the 40th floor, Carter was waiting. No tie today, just sleeves rolled up and a stiff smile. You? Made it. On time, Elijah replied, stepping out. Carter gestured toward the labs behind a set of security doors. They're waiting. They? Before Carter could answer, they walked in. White coats, suits, a small group of young interns, all white, all a few years older than Elijah. They turned as one when the door opened. A few polite smiles, one double take, one smirk that didn't hide fast enough. This, Carter announced, is Elijah Reed. He's joining us for the term. The girl in the red blazer stepped forward, handshake stiff. You from Carnegie? No, Elijah said. Me tea? He shook his head. East Side Harbor Public. A pause. A breath. The smallest flicker of superiority from the guy leaning against the table. Elijah saw it all but said nothing. Carter cleared his throat. We'll be starting today with a systems diagnostic challenge. You have 20 minutes to spot the flaw in our drive matrix. Consider it an icebreaker. The interns scattered to screens. Elijah sat down at the edge terminal untouched. Older model. Slower refresh rate. The kind they assumed wouldn't matter. He rolled his neck. Cracked his fingers once. Then got to work. Click. Click. Pause. Lines of code flew by. Most of it bloated padding. Some error buried under the pretense of perfection. He didn't blink. Didn't whisper guesses to himself like the others. Just watched. Read. Calculated. 15 minutes passed. Someone chuckled. He's just staring at the screen. Elijah didn't move. At the 19-minute mark, he stood. Carter glanced up. Elijah? He asked carefully. Whoever coded your matrix? Elijah said, looped a diagnostic subroutine into the redundant core. Looks impressive, but it actually creates a feedback spike that'll burn out your field converter if the stress load hits 42%. Dead silence. The room froze. Carter's eyes narrowed. Can you prove that? Elijah nodded, walked up. Took the touchscreen stylus from the lead engineer, who stiffened and drew a single, looping diagram on the glass panel. 3 strokes, red line, loop, spike. Then he pressed play. The simulation surged. Exactly at 42%, it crashed. The intern in the red blazer leaned back, mouth open. How'd you? Elijah turned toward Carter. Because I don't memorize solutions. I solve problems. Carter didn't clap. Didn't grin. He just nodded, once almost like a bow. Elijah, he said softly, this lab is yours now. The others didn't speak. But something in the room had changed. They weren't looking at him anymore. You got lucky yesterday. The words weren't said with malice. Just casual dismissal. Like a weather report. Elijah looked up from his terminal. Gavin, the same intern who smirked on day 1, leaned against the lab doorway, holding a protein shake like it was a trophy. Polished shoes, expensive watch, haircut too neat to be real. Most people wouldn't have spotted that bug, Gavin added, stepping in. But it's not repeatable. Don't feel bad if you fall flat this week. Elijah blinked once. Then went back to his code. Cool, he said, calm as the sea. Gavin lingered a beat too long, waiting for a reaction. When none came, he left. Elijah exhaled through his nose. He wasn't new to this kind of game. At Eastside, it was football players who mocked his honor roll pins. In the city, it was clerks who watched him walk through stores like he might explode. Here, it was people with smiling mouths and suspicious eyes. They all wore different masks, but the tone was always the same. You're not supposed to be here, but Elijah wasn't here to prove anything. He was here to build something. That day, Carter gave them a group challenge: design a prototype failsafe for the nanodrive regulator. Teams of 3, he said. Pick whoever you want. Elijah barely stood up before the room shuffled away. Like magnets flipping poles. No one made eye contact. No one offered a seat. Carter watched, silent, measuring. Finally, he said, or Elijah can work solo. Let's see how he handles pressure. There was a flicker of a grin on Gavin's face, but Elijah only nodded. Fair enough. The next 4 hours were a storm. Gavin's team buzzed, constant chatter, dry erase boards, flashy ideas that didn't land. The girl in red, Alyssa, kept tossing jargon like confetti. Elijah said nothing. He built, quietly, precisely. At one point, he removed his hoodie and wrapped it around the terminal monitor to block the glare. One of the interns laughed at the sight. Really? But Carter's brow twitched at the ingenuity. By 5 p.m., everyone was exhausted. They presented one by one. Gavin's group offered a sleek design, minimalist, polished, but flawed in logic. Alyssa's group had style, too, but theirs wouldn't survive a field malfunction. Then came Elijah. His prototype didn't look elegant. It wasn't pretty, but it worked. And when he pressed the final button, the room watched the failsafe trigger with absolute precision. A perfect delay buffer. A self-stabilizing matrix that the senior engineers quietly stared at like it shouldn't have come from someone that young. Did someone help you? Alyssa asked afterward, the words smiling but sharp. Elijah shrugged. Just me and curiosity. Carter looked over the team. We're building for the real world, not a brochure. Elijah's prototype is the only one that wouldn't get someone killed. The room fell still again. That night, Elijah stayed late. The sun dropped behind the skyline. Shadows stretched long across the lab. Carter passed him once, paused. You're making them nervous, he said flatly. Elijah glanced up. Is that a bad thing? Carter thought about it. No, but it'll get worse before it gets better. Elijah nodded once. Let it. Outside, Gavin watched them through the glass walls. His jaw tensed. Not because Elijah was loud, but because his silence was winning. The boardroom was colder than the labs, not in temperature, but in eyes. 6 people sat at the long obsidian table. Shareholders, executives, strategic advisors, all dressed in quiet wealth, all watching Carter like he owed them something. "This boy," said Thompson, an old man with a steel blue tie and sharper tongue, "is unorthodox." Carter leaned. Backhand steepled. "He's brilliant. No degree. No formal training. You brought him into a level 3 lab with 0 clearance. He solved a code matrix in 19 minutes. We've had PhDs miss it in 40. That's not the point. Then what is?" Silence. Carter's voice dropped. "Say what you want." To say a pause. Then Thompson's mouth twitched. "Optics. He's not exactly the type we recruit." And there it was. The room didn't flinch. They weren't surprised. Just annoyed Carter made them say it aloud. But Carter didn't flinch either. "I didn't hire types," he said. "I hire minds." He stood up, gathering the folder in front of him. "You're either interested in progress or you're clinging to the past. Decide fast." As Carter walked out, Thompson called behind him, "Just be prepared when this backfires." It didn't take long. By the next morning, a blog post surfaced. Anonymous, nasty, titled, "Landwell's New Prodigy or PR Prop?" It had Elijah's name, his photo taken without permission in the lab, and a deep dive into his life, his public school grades, his family's financial struggles, a cherry-picked juvenile record, a petty shoplifting misunderstanding from when he was 12. Twisted facts. Loaded questions. The article ended with, "Is this the future of corporate innovation or just a social experiment?" The comments were worse. Elijah sat on his cot that night, hands clenched around his phone. It buzzed nonstop. Some were supportive. Most weren't. Even his cousin called. "Yo, you okay, E?" "This thing's gone viral," Elijah swallowed. "I'm fine." He wasn't in the mirror. He barely recognized himself, sharpened jaw, eyes darker than usual. Not from hate. From exhaustion. The next day, Carter met him at the lobby, holding a newspaper. "You saw it?" "Yeah." Carter's jaw was tight. "I've got legal handling the takedown. HR's tracking who leaked it." Elijah nodded. "Don't waste energy defending me." Carter blinked. "You don't want to respond?" "I am the response." And with that, he walked past Carter, through the glass doors, back into the same lab where whispers now followed him like shadows. Elijah didn't break. He just worked harder, smarter, quieter. That week, he redesigned an entire failsafe algorithm. No flash, no announcement. But when the numbers came in, his work cut project risk by 43%. It hit the board's desk like a bombshell. Carter only said one thing in his next meeting. "Still think this was a PR stunt?" The sabotage wasn't loud. It came in whispers, in misplaced files, in overwritten scripts. Small things, little mistakes that made big systems break. When Project Nexus failed during a private demo with government clients, Carter's phone lit up within seconds. 3 servers froze. One blacked out. The diagnostics came in cold. No code errors, no hardware fault. But the whispers began within the hour. "Elijah touched that module last week. He ran a subroutine across that cluster. He's not certified to access that layer, right?" By noon, Carter stormed into the lab. "Elijah," he said quietly, "did you alter anything in the Nexus kernel?" Elijah looked up, calm, but cautious. "No. I reviewed the sandbox logs, but I never pushed anything to live." "You sure?" "I logged everything," Elijah said. "Check my trail." Carter left, silent, but the room didn't. Alyssa avoided eye contact. Gavin smirked like he'd just watched someone slip on ice. Someone had set him up. Elijah knew it. He just didn't know who yet. That night, he didn't go home. He stayed after hours, alone in the lab, pulling system logs from archived backups. Carter didn't know he could access. The more he looked, the more clear it became. Someone had overwritten part of the kernel. Someone with high-level clearance. And they did it after the file was last time stamped, backdating the push to make it. Looked like Elijah had edited it. It was digital framing. But the data didn't lie, tucked between packets of irrelevant lines. A ghost ID tag blinked, a staff marker used only by senior engineers. One of them had buried the override command using a masking loop. Clever. But not clever enough. Elijah copied everything to a private drive, encrypted it twice, then ran one final test to trace ping. It bounced off 5 servers, looped twice, and came back to one terminal. Gavin's. Elijah stared at the name on the screen. His jaw didn't clench. His breathing didn't change. He just nodded. The next morning, Elijah walked into Carter's office with a flash drive. Proof? Elijah handed it over, layer by layer. He masked the override and tried to route it through my old sandbox logs. Sloppy math in the timestamp gave him away. Carter plugged it in, stared, silent. Why not come to me yesterday? Because if I was wrong, Elijah said, I didn't want to make this about race. That line struck deeper than Carter expected. He looked up slowly. You knew he was coming for you. I just didn't think he'd risk burning the company to do it. Carter leaned back. For a moment, he looked older. Not just tired, changed. I'll take it from here. Later. That day, HR launched an internal audit. 2 days after that, Gavin was offered early release. But the news didn't say why. It didn't need to. Everyone knew. And yet, when Elijah returned to the lab, it was still quiet. People nodded, but their eyes still lingered a little. Too long, not out of respect, but out of fear. Because what scared them now wasn't Elijah's color. It was his clarity, his proof, his refusal to fight loud. And still win. Carter stood by the window of his top-floor office, watching the city glow beneath a gray sky. Behind him, reports were stacked, dozens of them. Metrics, graphs, audit logs. Every single one proved what Elijah had only hinted at. Promotion patterns that skipped over qualified black employees, recruiting channels that funneled through Ivy League pipelines, none of which touched districts like East Side, bonus discrepancies, retention, drop-offs. Quiet exclusion wrapped in professional language. Carter turned as Elijah stepped in. You're early, he said. I figured if change was coming, I shouldn't be late to it. Carter smiled. Not a full one, just a tired, knowing curl at the edges. I need help, Carter admitted. Real help. I'm not just talking about optics anymore. I want to fix the foundation. Elijah sat down. That means tearing parts of it down, Carter nodded. And that's where I lose people. Within days, Landwell's new internal reform task force was born. Quietly. No press release. No board approval. Just Carter's signature. And Elijah's fingerprints. They didn't announce it publicly, but the whispers started anyway. Elijah's the CEO's favorite. He's rewriting HR policy now. What's next? Running the company? But the numbers didn't lie. Elijah presented weekly findings and data so airtight even the skeptics choked on silence. Every stat was followed by one sharp, low voice. This isn't opinion, this is practice. Some departments listened, some didn't. Alyssa was the first to confront him. You're changing things too fast, she snapped during a closed-door session. Too fast for who? Elijah asked calmly. You're making people uncomfortable. So? Was being watched like a criminal on my first day. You didn't seem worried then. She stiffened. No apology came. Elijah didn't wait for one. He focused on the long game. Rewriting internship criteria. diversifying recruitment channels, removing unnecessary GPA cutoffs, adding blind resume reviews. Each change was like removing rusted bolts from a locked gate. The gate didn't open right away, but it shifted. One afternoon, Carter called Elijah into his office again. "You know what someone asked me?" he said. "They asked if you were just an exception." Elijah tilted his head. "What did you say?" "I told them." "No, you're a reminder." "A reminder of what?" "That we've spent decades pretending talent comes wrapped in pedigree when it actually shows up drenched in rain, fixing your tire while you're being a bigot." They both chuckled, and then the laughter faded, because they both knew this wasn't over. The company was changing, but the world outside? Still watching, still waiting, and some waiting for Elijah to fall. The executive's name was Brock Welling. He was everything Elijah had learned to recognize and polish threats. Charming, articulate, respected, and rotten beneath the surface. He'd smiled through every meeting since Elijah's rise, nodded at every reform slide, even shook his hand at Carter's task force launch. But Elijah could see it in his eyes every time. "You're temporary. Now." Welling sat at the far end of the conference room during the Q4 Innovation Forum, where Elijah was presenting the new intern equity pipeline, a model that widened access, removed elite-only filters, and brought in raw talent from underfunded districts. As Elijah stood at the glass board, walking executives through projections, Welling raised a hand mid-sentence. "Elijah, sorry to interrupt," he said, all politeness, "but I have a concern." Elijah nodded, waiting. Welling smiled tightly. "Your model prioritizes inclusion, but what if merit suffers? Isn't there a risk we're lowering the bar?" The room shifted, not loudly, but you could feel it. Like the air pulled back. Elijah stood still. His eyes didn't flicker. "Are you saying talent only lives in certain zip codes?" he asked plainly. Welling chuckled. "Of course not. I'm just saying companies succeed by hiring the best, not making up for social gaps." Elijah stepped forward. No flinch, no anger, just fire quiet and precise. "Define best," he said. Welling paused. Elijah continued. "Because if best is who has the money to take unpaid internships, or the privilege to attend the right colleges, then no, I'm not interested in defending that." He turned to the screen and tapped a single slide. It showed a redacted resume. No name, no school, no zip code. Applicant A, Elijah. Sighed. Scored highest in technical aptitude. Clean code. Adaptive thinking. No legacy name. No Ivy degree. He tapped again. Applicant B, Ivy grad. Strong network. Failed every logic challenge we gave them. A beat of silence. Elijah looked back at Welling. "Which one's the best?" Welling didn't speak. Elijah's voice dropped. "You're not worried about standards. You're worried the gate you stood behind doesn't protect you anymore." Dead silence. Carter, watching from the back, folded his hands. Welling forced a smile, but his eyes betrayed the hit. After the meeting, word spread like wildfire. People didn't just talk about what Elijah said. They repeated it word for word. He wasn't defending his seat anymore. He was flipping the whole table. That night, in Carter's office, the older man leaned forward. "I've watched men run this company by keeping it small safe. You just made it bigger, riskier, more honest." Elijah nodded once. "That's the point. But this last push?" Carter warned. "It's going to rattle everything." Elijah stood. "I'm ready." And he meant it, because he no longer needed to prove he belonged. Now, he was clearing the path for every kid who looked like him. Rain fell again, just like that first night. But this time, Elijah wasn't in a hoodie. He stood beneath the grand glass dome of Landwell Tower's atrium. Hall, dressed in a sharp charcoal suit, crisp white shirt, and the same calm expression he'd carried through every insult, every whisper, every quiet war. The atrium was packed. Media, investors, staff. The event was officially a Future Leadership Summit. But everyone knew what it really was. A test. Carter stepped to the podium first. His voice was steady, but you could hear the pride leaking through the pauses. When I first met Elijah Reed, he began, I saw a young man changing my tire in the rain. Some laughter, but what I didn't realize was that he was changing my entire framework. Carter stepped back, and the spotlight shifted. Elijah walked up slowly, one step. 2. No cue cards. No teleprompter. Just him. Thank you, he said quietly. Then he paused. I've been asked what I think the future of leadership looks like. Truth is, I've seen it. He looked across the sea of faces. It's the kid who's never had a mentor but still builds something brilliant in his bedroom. It's the girl whose school had broken Wi-Fi, but she still taught herself Python at the library. It's every mind that was underestimated, because someone assumed talent wears a tie. A murmur rippled through the crowd. Elijah's voice didn't rise, but it deepened. You don't raise the bar by narrowing the gate. You raise it by widening the road. He stepped back from the podium. This company didn't give me a chance out of charity. It gave me a platform. What you do with that is a legacy. The room erupted, but Carter raised a hand for quiet. Then he walked forward again, this time holding a black folder. Elijah, he said, turning slightly toward him, I've spent 40 years leading this company, but the last year taught me more than all of them combined. He opened the folder slowly. I'm stepping down as CEO by year's end. Gasps, murmurs. Carter nodded, unwavering. And the first person I'm recommending for executive director of innovation reporting directly to the board is Elijah Reed. The applause didn't explode, it built, like a wave. A slow, rising storm of hands and hearts and voices. And Elijah? He didn't smile wide. He didn't raise his fists. He just closed his eyes for one breath. Then nodded. Outside, the rain had stopped. The Bentley sat parked beside the same curb as that first night. Its tires, this time, are perfectly fine.